Okay, so right now we're gonna start from the setup. I'm sorry, I'm repeating. We're gonna basically find your toast and go back a little bit from there. Okay, so one thing I want you to kind of think about right away is, I talk about on the boat, like your setup should be comfortable, twist, and lean. Mm-hmm. Like I'm barely leaned. I'm like very minimally twist. I'm just kind of thinking about just as I want to go into the toast to get that grab up front, thinking about that forward motion. So I kind of went back from your toast about the same amount to about, let's say even if it's about here. Mm-hmm. Obviously you're a little bit low already with your arm placement, mm-hmm. If it were to clear the water, right? The other thing is I would say that you're leaned a little bit forward. So I usually connect the ear down to the hip.
Okay.
And it's just a kind of indicator of how relaxed you are at your setup. So even if I go back a little bit, I mean, you already noticed earlier, like you weren't sitting up all the way, right? I think when you constantly stay lean forward, you're gonna naturally be constantly a little bit tense. So you want to get to a point where, like, you can see I'm fully sitting up here. Mm-hmm. My setup is just a little bit of lean, right? Okay. So it's all going to kind of be tied in what we're talking about right now. Obviously, your pool, you need to sit up all the way when you're getting into those long, efficient strokes for like a 500-meter piece. Okay. So I do see that you're leaning, which is good. I mean, when I go into my toast, you can see that I do lean as well. So I'm going to draw another line at the edge of our toast. Okay, I've leaned forward about that much. So if that's where your setup, that's your toast. Okay. Mm-hmm. So you do have relatively, leaning each time. Obviously, I would want both of these lines to be back a little bit, right? Mm-hmm. And here's where we're going to talk about why, okay? So when you're into your toast position and you're going into your catch, you want to make sure you're using your body to get on that. You want to get your body weight on it. In order to do that efficiently, you can't already be all the way fully leaned as far as you can. Mm-hmm. I mean, the only way you can get more out of that now at this point is if you like really hammer down and lean hard down. Oops, that's not an arrow, right? To get that weight on. Mm-hmm. Whereas where I'm sitting right now, like I still have room to mostly be leaning, like thinking about leaning forward onto it. So this kind of gets to what like Dave was talking about with leaning, making sure you lean forward. I've talked about it too with making sure you don't lean so forward that now it's mostly downward motion, right? Mm-hmm. So watch as you go. Let me just freeze both of us at the same point. So this is where we're both basically at toast. This is our full. I guess it's almost full extension because I actually consider the catch the full extension, and then you sit up. Mm-hmm. So you can see, look at how my body is moving into the catch. So if we look at my right side here, as I go into the catch, see how my ear now is past mm-hmm. that line again? Mm-hmm. So we have 3 lines here. Your setup, your toast, and then your catch.
I don't have that.
Right, so from your toast now into your catch, your body is stagnant. And it's mostly just your arms trying to put a lot of pressure onto it. Okay. So you're missing that weight transfer in your catch because you're already too far leaned out. Okay? Mm-hmm. So bring it back a little. And relax at your setup a little bit more. Okay, your twist is pretty good. If we were starting our stroke at this height, obviously that would be a very good, strong position, but you want this amount of lean with your arms lower down here, right? Okay, so I think that's the biggest thing to fix for you first, okay? When you get into the meat of the pool, so let's say we look at let me freeze both of us now at maybe a similar paddle angle. So let's take it around here. Okay. So we'll take a look at the front view as well. But a couple of things. Be extra careful with your top arm.
Oh, it collapsed.
Yeah, you have it kind of collapsed.
Yeah.
So generally, like I've talked about now, I think I used to say 45 degrees. Keep it around 30 degrees.
Okay.
Bend. I think in practice, like you'll hear some coaches say straight arm, top arm. I mean, if you actually look at a lot of video, it's probably about 30 degrees. But the general concept you want to think about is loading your top hand with mostly a good load path all the way to the shoulder. So if you bend it too much, or if you collapse it down too much, then you lose. Then it starts to be just trying to pull it down versus like holding and pressuring with that shoulder, right?
So that's where I've lost.
Yeah. So I think you'll get more out of it if you think, and this is kind of a small nuance that I've slowly started to kind of move towards this year. I used to say a lot like down pressure directly in line with the paddle shaft. But I think this year I'm going to be actually telling more advanced paddlers to start thinking about down pressure slightly. Sorry, I'm going to use straight line. The down pressure is actually going to be slightly at that angle.
Oh.
So your wrist, instead of being directly perpendicular on top, is going to be slightly
This way.
not quite as far that way. So I don't want it like back straight behind it, but like just a little bit.
Okay. So it's not perpendicular to the wall.
Because I know right now you're probably trying to achieve that. Like you can see your wrist is trying to stay on top of that T-handle, but I would actually want it to rotate
Just a bit.
just down just a little bit, and then also make sure that arm is a little bit more straight. Okay, I do see that you are using quite a good bit amount of your back muscles in pulling through this way, so that's really good. When you get to this part of your stroke here, this is kind of where you kind of transition into thinking about just top arm pressure, jamming it back instead of that final lift with the upper back.
Oh.
Okay, so right here you're thinking about, oh, I'm going to get some extra oomph out of the back end of my stroke by really forcing my top hand down instead of, see, at the very end, you should already be kind of, as soon as you hit your hip here, so you are going a little bit far back, as soon as you get to your hip, you should be, like, power is shutting down and you're starting to come back around. Because usually, at this angle in the water, if I really try to muscle my top hand directly in that line, I'm just like slicing through the water instead of holding pressure. So you won't get quite as big of a bonus doing that on like the OC or on the dragon boat. Okay, so let's go and take a look at the front view. So I want to finish my point about, like, you can see, like, as I get through this portion, my upper back kind of goes up into my neutral. And that's really where you want to, like, make sure all that tension is getting released on that recovery. Sit up, relax, let your muscles breathe. Okay, now let's take a look at the front view here. Okay. So first thing I would say, if we just look at how your body is.
Tilted.
Yeah. So if I'm going to draw an imaginary base from here to your nose. Oops, I'm off there. So it's only a little bit more, but I think that extra body weight, like leaning too far out, affects a little bit of, like, so if you think about your torquing mechanism, like sitting up straight and maybe just a little bit of lean, like you get a little bit stronger on your torque through the center of your body than if I were to force you to like be here, right? So yeah, just be careful about that. I think I'm mainly going through this front portion so we can get another look at some of those different angles. So obviously you're gonna see like my top hand placement in relation to my head is gonna be quite a bit different than yours by nature of you being more leaned forward and slightly down than me. So that could be like relatively a good judge of things too. Like you'll know if you get into your setup position and your top hand is way up there, it's either your top hand's too high or you're leaned too far.
Lean too far.
Okay.
Okay.
And right here, I think just by nature of your position, because I think your body naturally knows what it wants to do with that inside shoulder and where it wants to be strong. Like you can see when we're both going into the catch right here. Because your top hand ends up like being a little bit higher, because you've already leaned forward, like your elbow and where that load path goes, like your inside shoulder naturally wants to do something similar to mine. See, you can, if we look carefully at the inside shoulder as I go back and forth here, see how the inside shoulder is doing this? So we want to be able to, we want to be able to load through the arm all the way to that front shaft. And if it's up here and our shoulder wants to do this, then this is going to collapse, right? So we want to lower that top hand so that the load path, when we derotate and that inside shoulder is coming down on it, is going to transfer directly into that. So that's why your elbow kind of collapses, because you can see, right, both of our shoulders here are doing very similar things, because we know that that's the strongest thing for it to do.
But your load pad's a lot straighter.
Yeah. So I mean, there's two reasons for that. A is because I'm not leaned forward like this. So if I do the same thing here, then yeah, it will probably collapse similarly. Okay. But this is kind of giving you a good understanding of why it's doing certain things. Okay. So another fine point. Okay. When we get to the exit here, let me sync up our exits. So obviously we already talked about pulling a little bit too far back there, but relaxing a bit more on that exit too. So you can see right as I get to my hip, you can see my wrist flare out, my elbow leads out. Okay. Even throughout your pull here, your lower arm kind of just stays tight and minimal relaxation. So I want more, and I'm harping more on the visual aspect, because usually, like, as much as people claim, oh yeah, I'm relaxed, like holding your arm straight through that is gonna not be quite as relaxed. And then even the next thing, so that's the outer arm, right? The next thing is your inside arm. So I should actually, let me sync it up to when we're both actually recovering forward. So you're coming back here. Okay. So right here, look at top hand. Okay. See how I'm going a little bit low, but I'm trying to aim for the inner armpit of the person in front of me. Right? You're kind of just pulling straight back up. So throughout your test, you're just naturally going to be also more, a little bit more tense. Not only holding that tilted position that we were talking about, but also your arms going through that motion for the entirety of a test. It's going to be missing out on all that relaxation. Okay? Okay. I think that just about does it for this video.